I always believed the road you take in the morning determines the kind of day you'll have. My father used to say that when he put on his uniform and kissed my forehead before another dangerous shift. I didn't know that one morning drive would change the entire direction of my life. I left home early, kissed Charles goodbye, and promised him I'd be home before dinner. I was in my undercover clothes, simple jeans, no makeup, hair packed back. Nothing that screamed FBI. I was deep inside a neighborhood where racial profiling was practically the community sport, but I had a job to do, a case to close, a mission to finish. The siren behind me came out of nowhere. Blue and red reflections danced across my windshield as I slowed down. My stomach tightened, not out of guilt, but out of recognition. I had heard about Officer William Ford. Everyone had. A police officer with more complaints than commendations, but protected by men with power and influence. I rolled down my window and prepared myself. He didn't ask for my license first. He didn't greet me. He didn't even pretend to be professional. He looked at me the way someone looks at dirt on their shoe. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" he asked. Not my name, not my destination, just the neighborhood, just my skin. I told myself to stay calm. I told myself my silence was part of the mission. But I should have known. William wasn't the kind of man who could stop at one humiliation. Because when I reached for my license, he stepped back, smirked, and said something that made my blood turn cold. And that was the moment everything shifted. "Problem. Don't move," he barked, hand already resting on his gun. "People like you always pretend to cooperate until they snap. People like you." I swallowed the anger burning in my throat. My training told me to stay calm. My father's voice echoed in my head. A smart officer knows when to fight and when to wait. But William wasn't done. "Step out of the car," he ordered. No reason. No explanation, just entitlement, just hate, just a man who thought he was untouchable. I stepped out slowly, hands visible. He circled me like a predator studying prey. He looked at my body, my face, my skin, everything except the person inside. "What do you even do for a living? Drug dealer's girlfriend? Someone's side chick? Or maybe you're carrying something right now?" I kept my mouth shut. He hated that. Men like him always hated silence. He searched my car without permission, tossed my bag on the ground, looked through everything he could touch. He kept talking, ugly, sharp words meant to cut through dignity. I watched him plant something under my seat. My heart slammed against my ribs. So this was his game. This was why he targeted women like me. He wanted a victim he could shape into a criminal. But I noticed something else when he stood up. A body cam off. Deliberately off. He tried to pin me with evidence he planted. He tried to force me to admit to something I didn't do. He wanted me scared, cornered, ruined. But when he grabbed my wrist to cuff me, a call suddenly came through his radio, urgent, loud, unavoidable. And the message he received froze him on the spot. His radio buzzed again, louder. "Unit 24, report immediately. Federal agents are in the district. Repeat, federal agents are active. All officers maintain standard protocol." William stiffened. I saw it. The first crack in his arrogance. He pulled his hand off me, tried to mask his panic, then stepped back as if I suddenly became radioactive. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice shaky now. Still rude, still forceful, but something else had slipped in: fear. I didn't answer. He didn't deserve my voice. I kept my arms folded as he tried to regain control. You think you can play smart with me?" he stuttered. "You don't know who I am," I replied quietly. He hated the confidence in my tone. "Oh, I know exactly who you are," he said, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "A nobody trying to look important." My phone rang inside the car, 3 short beeps. My team's signal. A subtle check-in. He heard it too. His eyes darted to the sound. Then back to me. Then to the spot where he'd planted the evidence. He realized in that moment that if I were someone connected, someone protected, someone powerful. This would finish him. And before I could reach for my phone, he grabbed it first. "Don't touch that," I snapped. He smirked, trying to be bold, trying to regain dominance. "I'll do what I want." But then the screen lit up. Fed OPS check-in, Havana status. His face drained of color. He dropped the phone like it burned him. For the first time, William Ford realized he might have messed with the wrong woman. William forced himself to smile, pretending he hadn't just seen exactly who I was. "It's a code name," he muttered. "Could be anyone." He sounded like a man, arguing with his own heartbeat. I picked up my phone calmly. "Thank you, Officer Ford. I'll be reporting this stop." The smile vanished. "You report me, and you'll regret it." I took a step toward him. "I don't make threats, I make reports." The silence between us thickened. I got back into my car, my hands shaking, not out of fear, but out of rage held tight inside my chest. That same morning, I filed the report. Detailed, precise, factual. I submitted it to the precinct and to internal affairs. And because he tried to plant evidence, I attached a note for federal review. I thought justice would start working. But by the next day, everything was gone. My report, the body cam request, the complaint registration, all deleted as if they never existed. When I confronted the officer at the desk, he looked everywhere except at me. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Nothing was submitted under your name." He was lying, badly. I left the precinct with my hands cold and my heart burning. William's godfathers were stronger than I expected. Politicians, senior officers, powerful old men who protected him like he was made of fragile gold. And somewhere inside that building, men who knew my father, who respected my uncle, had erased my truth to protect a racist with a badge. But they made one fatal mistake. They thought I would give up. That night, as I sat in the dark with the deleted report still glowing in my mind, a message flashed on my phone. "Unknown number. We saw what they did. Meet us tomorrow. You're not alone." I barely slept. Thoughts kept clawing at me. William's smirk, the deleted report, the godfathers pulling strings in the shadows. By morning, I felt like my bones were vibrating with anger. I met the sender of the message in an abandoned parking lot behind an old supermarket. Two men approached me, both off-duty officers. I recognized them vaguely. My father had trained with their fathers. "We can't talk long," one whispered. "This isn't safe." "Then make it quick," I replied. They exchanged a glance. Then the older one said, "We saw the report the moment it came in. You weren't imagining things. Someone high up deleted it fast." My stomach twisted. "Who?" "We don't know exactly, but it wasn't just the precinct. Someone outside the state was contacted." I felt the air drop 10 degrees. They stepped closer, lowering their voices. "Havana, William has protection. The kind that doesn't just erase complaints, they erase people." I didn't flinch. "I'm not afraid of him." "You should be," the younger officer said. "He's already talking. He told the higher-ups you assaulted him, that you were hostile, that you—" I burst out laughing. "Hostile? Me?" "He's trying to flip the story," I said. "And he's good at it," the officer replied. "He's done it before, several times." A cold wave washed over me. William wasn't just dangerous. He was experienced. "And Havana," the older man added, his voice trembling. "He knows who you are now, everything about you." My breath caught. "How?" "We think someone leaked it to him, on purpose." My heartbeat slowed. Someone inside the system wanted me silenced. Before I could speak, the younger officer leaned in. "Be careful. William is planning something big, and it has your name on it." My mouth went dry. "What exactly is he planning?" They exchanged a terrified look. And the older one whispered, "You won't like the answer." For days, I watched my back. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow felt longer. Every car behind me felt suspicious. It's one thing to be targeted by a corrupt cop. It's another when you discover the corruption extends far above him. But nothing prepared me for the message I received while leaving my undercover location. Havana Dickson, report to the station immediately. Mandatory. It wasn't signed, but the tone was familiar, sharp, commanding, entitled. William. I arrived at the station and immediately sensed something was wrong. Officers whispered in corners. A few glanced at me with a mix of confusion and pity. When I entered the conference room, William was already there, sitting at the head of the table like he owned the building, and beside him were 3 senior officers, his godfathers. One of them slid a file toward me. Ms. Havana, we have received a report that you resisted arrest, created a disturbance, and attempted to flee. I stared at them in disbelief. He had flipped the script perfectly. That's not true, I said. He racially profiled me. He planted evidence. Do you have proof? One of the senior officers asked calmly. They knew I didn't. They deleted everything. William leaned back, smiling like a man watching his trap snap closed. You know, Havana, it's dangerous to lie to law enforcement. The older officer added, your behavior could cost you your clearance, even your job. My pulse pounded in my ears. They wanted me cornered. Silent. Afraid. Instead, I took a deep breath. You're making a mistake, I said quietly. A very big one. William smirked wider. Oh no, he replied. The only mistake here is yours. And then the door opened. Someone unexpected walked in, someone who shouldn't have been there. When the door swung open, every head turned, including mine. Charles, my husband. My heart plummeted. He shouldn't have been there. He didn't know the details of my undercover identity, but he knew enough to understand the danger. And the look on his face, anger, confusion, worry, hit me harder than anything William had done. Havana, he said, voice tight. What's going on? I got a message saying you were being disciplined. My eyes snapped to William. Of course. He pulled my husband into this to embarrass me, or break me. Mr. Coleman, one of the senior officers said smoothly, your wife's behavior toward Officer Ford has raised serious concerns. Charles looked at me, then at William, then back at me again. What behavior? William shrugged. Ask her. I clenched my fists. Charles, leave, please. What? No, I'm not leaving you here with. It's an internal matter, I cut in sharply. One of the godfathers leaned forward. Actually, having a spouse present might be beneficial. Transparency, you know. No. They wanted him to see me powerless. They wanted him to doubt me. They wanted cracks in my home. William pointed toward me casually. She became aggressive during a routine stop, refused to cooperate, tried to run. I had to call for backup. Charles's jaw tightened. My wife, Havana, aggressive. William shrugged. Stress affects people differently. I stepped forward, voice steady. Charles, they are lying. One of the godfathers sighed dramatically. No need to be defensive. I felt my stomach twist. This wasn't justice. This was psychological warfare. And then William delivered the final blow. I think Havana needs psychological evaluation, he said. She's unstable. Charles's eyes widened. Something inside me snapped. But before I could speak, someone else stormed into the room, someone with a badge that outranked every man sitting there. The air froze. Standing in the doorway was Uncle Raymond, my father's older brother, a decorated officer with a reputation for dismantling corruption like it was a hobby. He had retired years ago, but the respect he commanded never retired with him. His eyes swept across the room like a silent storm. Which one of you thought calling her husband was appropriate? He asked coldly. The godfathers stiffened. William's smirk evaporated. I hadn't called him. Uncle Raymond had come because he'd heard whispers. Someone inside the station, still loyal to my family, tipped him off. He approached the table slowly, deliberately, leaning on his cane like a judge preparing a sentence. Havana, he said in a low tone. Step aside. I moved. Then he dropped a file, thick, heavy, onto the table. That, he said, is a collection of every complaint filed against Officer Ford in the last 7 years. My heart stopped. William's face drained of color. One of the godfathers flipped through the pages quickly. This is confidential information. How did you? Raymond's voice boomed. I trained half the men in this building. Don't insult me. Silence. Tense. Sharp. Then he turned directly to William. You threatened my niece. You touched her. You planted evidence on her, and your little circle here tried to bury it. One godfather snapped. Raymond, you can't just walk in here. I can walk anywhere the truth has been murdered, he replied. My chest tightened. He was fighting for me, but this wasn't a fight he could win alone. The godfathers exchanged glances, the kind powerful men share when they're about to strike back. And one of them leaned forward, voice calm and deadly. Raymond, you're overestimating your reach. This matter is bigger than you. Then he added, and bigger than Havana. The room shifted. And suddenly, I realized. They weren't trying to intimidate me anymore. They were threatening my family. Something cold slithered down my spine. Threatening me was one thing. Threatening my family was another. That was the moment I understood what kind of enemies I was dealing with. Men who hid behind badges, used the system like a weapon, and believed themselves untouchable. Uncle Raymond stepped closer to them. You think I'm afraid of you? He asked quietly, dangerously. The oldest godfather smiled slowly. You're already afraid. That's why you showed up. My fists clenched. Charles stood beside me, jaw set, his eyes flicking between the men in the room like he was ready to swing. I touched his arm lightly. Not yet. He understood. Let be clear, the godfather continued. Havana was out of line. Officer Ford showed restraint. I almost laughed. Restraint. William had tried to destroy my life before sunrise. Then the godfather added, if you push this, if you make noise, we will respond accordingly. How? I asked softly. He leaned back smugly. You're an undercover agent, aren't you? It would be unfortunate if certain gangs discovered your real identity. My blood ran ice cold. Charles inhaled sharply. Uncle Raymond froze completely. They were threatening to leak my identity. My throat tightened. I forced myself to speak. You would expose a federal agent to criminals. William chuckled under his breath. If you keep making problems, why not? That was the moment the last piece of fear inside me died. Because when a system becomes weaponized, the only option left is to become more dangerous than the weapon. I stepped forward, meeting every pair of corrupted eyes. Do it, I said. Expose me. But see what happens to every one of you the moment you try. The room went silent. Then the oldest godfather whispered, You're making a mistake, Havana. One that could cost you everything. He didn't know it yet, but they had just triggered the beginning of their downfall. When we left the precinct, Charles didn't speak. Not a word. His silence was sharp, heavier than the threats thrown at me inside that room. When we got to the car, he finally turned to me. Havana, why didn't you tell me everything? Why did I have to hear it in that room? His voice wasn't angry. It was wounded. And that cut deeper than any insult William ever hurled at me. I couldn't, I said softly. It was undercover. I had to protect you. He exhaled, shaking his head. But you're in danger. They're threatening you. They're threatening us. I touched his face gently. I'm going to handle it. He didn't look convinced. We drove home quietly. My mind kept replaying the threats, the arrogance in William's eyes, the confidence of those godfathers. They were certain they'd broken me. But that night, everything changed. At 2:11 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. A shaky voice whispered, Havana, they're planning something big. You need to leave your house right now. My heart slammed into my ribs. Who is this? No answer. I grabbed Charles. We have to go. Before he could ask why, the headlights of a vehicle stopped outside our house. Then another. Then a third. Unmarked. Silent. Men stepped out, dark figures moving like hunters. Charles whispered, "Who are they?" I swallowed hard. William's people. Then one of them raised something shiny under the streetlight. And I realized they weren't here to scare me. They were here to eliminate me. The moment I saw the metallic glint under the streetlight, my instincts roared to life. Charles, move. I dragged him toward the back of the house. A gunshot split the night, loud, sharp, final. The bullet shattered our living room window. They weren't bluffing. They weren't warning me. They were hunting me. I shoved Charles toward the back door, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Havana, what is happening? Who are these men?" he hissed. "They're connected to William," I said breathlessly. "They want to erase me before I expose him." Another gunshot. Closer. Charles helped me push a shelf against the hallway entrance, buying us seconds, nothing more. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "I know." My hands trembled as I grabbed my emergency go bag hidden in the pantry, a bag I hoped I would never need. But tonight, it felt like salvation. We slipped through the back door into the dark alley. I didn't have to look over my shoulder to know they were inside the house already. "We need the car," Charles said. "No, they'll expect that." I grabbed his hand and pulled him into the shadows. The men's voices drifted through the house, calm, confident, certain they had cornered me. One voice cut above the others. "William." "She couldn't have gone far," he said. "Find her and make sure she doesn't talk again." Charles froze. "He's here." I nodded. It was one thing to be threatened. But hearing William in my house, breathing my air, stepping on my floors, ignited a rage I didn't know I could contain. Charles squeezed my hand. "Havana, what do we do?" I took a deep breath. "We disappear." But William wasn't planning on letting us. Because at that exact moment, a flashlight beam landed on us. "There," a voice shouted. The beam of light cut across my face. Adrenaline surged through my veins. Charles grabbed my arm, and we darted deeper into the alleyway. Footsteps pounded behind us. "Havana, this way," he whispered urgently. But I knew the alley well. I had studied every corner during my undercover work. There was only one route that would give us a fighting chance. We slid between two abandoned dumpsters and reached a small, rusted gate. I kicked it open. It screeched, but we had no choice. Every second mattered. "Heads up." Two of the men rounded the corner. One raised his gun. I shoved Charles behind me and grabbed a broken pipe lying on the ground. The man fired. The bullet ricocheted off the dumpster inches from my head. They were not here to wound. They were here to finish. Charles pulled me. "Don't fight, run." We sprinted through the narrow path and emerged into the back lot of an old closed-down bakery. My lungs burned. "How are they finding us so fast?" Charles gasped. My stomach twisted. "They're tracking my phone." Without hesitation, I smashed the device against the ground until it cracked apart. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a voice echoed through the darkness. "Come out, Havana. You're only making it worse." "William." He sounded calm, like he knew the ending already, like he had written it. Charles clenched his fists. "I swear if he touches you." "We can't confront him yet," I whispered. "We need leverage." Lights swept across the bakery lot. More flashlights, more men. Charles whispered, "We're surrounded." I grabbed his hand. "Not yet." But before I could move, a familiar black SUV screeched into the lot, tires burning rubber. The driver's door flew open, and the last person I expected yelled, "Get in now." The SUV's headlights washed over us, and for a second I couldn't breathe. "Uncle Raymond." He motioned frantically. "Move it, both of you." Charles didn't hesitate. I shoved him into the back seat before diving in after him. Raymond slammed the door and floored the accelerator. The SUV flew forward just as two of William's men stepped into the lot. Gunshots exploded behind us. Glass shattered. I ducked, covering Charles's head as Raymond swerved sharply down the street. "Raymond, how did you find us?" I demanded. He didn't look at me. A loyal officer heard something was happening. I got here as fast as I could. Charles sucked in a breath. "They were trying to kill us." Raymond's jaw tightened. "They're trying to silence you, and now that I've intervened, they'll try to silence me too." I stared at him. "This is bigger than we thought." He nodded grimly. "They're scared, and scared men become violent men." We turned into an industrial district, dark, empty, perfect for hiding. Raymond finally slowed down. "I need to know everything William said to you, every threat, every detail." I inhaled shakily. He told his godfathers he'd expose my identity if I didn't drop the report. Raymond's hands tightened on the wheel. "And now they've escalated to attempted murder," he muttered. "Good." "Good," Charles echoed incredulously. "Yes," Raymond said. "Now they've made a mistake I can use." Before I could ask what he meant, headlights filled the rearview mirror. Bright, fast, approaching. Raymond swore under his breath. "It seems your friend, William, isn't done tonight." Charles turned pale. "They followed us." Raymond's voice hardened. "No, they were waiting for us." The vehicle behind us accelerated. And then I recognized the license plate. William. Raymond didn't waste a second. "Hold on," he barked. The SUV jerked forward as he slammed the gas pedal. The engine roared, tires squealing against the asphalt. Charles clung to my arm so tightly his nails dug through my shirt. "He's gaining," I shouted. Raymond grit his teeth. "He has a faster car, but I have experience." A gunshot rang out. The back window shattered into sparkling dust. I threw myself over Charles instinctively. Raymond took a sharp turn into a construction zone. Metal beams and abandoned machinery littered the path. Dust clouds billowed around us. William's headlights sliced through the dust like twin blades. "He's not stopping," Charles yelled. "He won't," I whispered. "Not until one of us is dead." Raymond veered left, straight toward a massive crane. At the last second, he spun the wheel, skirting the edge with inches to spare. William followed, but not as smoothly. His car clipped a pile of metal rods, sending them clattering across the ground. "He's slowing down," I said. "For now," Raymond muttered. "But he'll catch up. We need a plan." Charles leaned forward. "We can't keep running. We need to call someone." "We can't use phones," I said. "They'll trace us. Everything is compromised." Another shot fired, closer this time. It punched through the back of the SUV, embedding into the seat beside me. Raymond swore. "He's trying to hit the fuel tank." "He wants us to burn," Charles whispered. I swallowed hard. Fear was there, but something darker was growing stronger inside me. No more running. No more hiding. No more silence. Raymond slammed the brakes suddenly. The SUV fishtailed, stopping behind a row of abandoned shipping containers. "What are you doing?" I gasped. Raymond turned in his seat, eyes sharp as steel. "Ending this chase." Footsteps approached, slow, heavy. "William." Raymond didn't waste a second. "Hold on," he barked. The SUV jerked forward as he slammed the gas pedal. The engine roared, tires squealing against the asphalt. Charles clung to my arm so tightly his nails dug through my shirt. "He's gaining," I shouted. Raymond grit his teeth. "He has a faster car, but I have experience." A gunshot rang out. The back window shattered into sparkling dust. I threw myself over Charles instinctively. Raymond took a sharp turn into a construction zone. Metal beams and abandoned machinery littered the path. Dust clouds billowed around us. William's headlights sliced through the dust like twin blades. "He's not stopping," Charles yelled. He won't, I whispered. Not until one of us is dead. Raymond veered left, straight toward a massive crane. At the last second, he spun the wheel, skirting the edge with inches to spare. William followed, but not as smoothly. His car clipped a pile of metal rods, sending them clattering across the ground. He's slowing down, I said. For now, Raymond muttered. But he'll catch up, we need a plan. Charles leaned forward. We can't keep running, we need to call someone. We can't use phones, I said. They'll trace us, everything is compromised. Another shot fired, closer this time. It punched through the back of the SUV, embedding into the seat beside me. Raymond swore. He's trying to hit the fuel tank. He wants us to burn, Charles whispered. I swallowed hard. Fear was there, but something darker was growing stronger inside me. No more running. No more hiding. No more silence. Raymond slammed the brakes suddenly. The SUV fishtailed, stopping behind a row of abandoned shipping containers. What are you doing? I gasped. Raymond turned in his seat, eyes sharp as steel. Ending this chase. Footsteps approached, slow, heavy. William. The footsteps stopped inches from the SUV. I held my breath. Even the air around us felt scared. Raymond motioned for silence. Then we heard his voice. Calm, cold, almost amused. Havana, William called. You've been busy tonight. Charles tightened his grip on my hand. Raymond slowly reached for the gun under his seat. William continued. Do you know how many men I had to pull off shifts tonight just to deal with you? You're causing a lot of trouble for yourself. I could hear the smirk in his tone. You think running will solve anything? He asked. It won't. You're surrounded, and you know what? I'm done pretending this is about procedure. The sound of his boots echoed on the gravel. This is personal now. Raymond whispered, Stay here, then cracked the SUV door open quietly. But William was quicker. A gunshot blasted through the air, hitting the SUV's hood. Raymond froze. William laughed softly. Come on out, he said. All of you, let's talk like civilized people. Raymond murmured, He wants us out in the open. Don't move. But William suddenly changed his tone, sharp, mocking. Or maybe I should bring Havana out myself. The rear door yanked open so violently I screamed. A hand grabbed my arm and dragged me halfway out of the SUV. Charles lunged forward. Let her go. William pressed his gun to my neck. Back off. Charles froze. Raymond aimed, but William shifted me in front of him like a shield. Smart move, old man, William sneered. My pulse thundered. His breath was hot against my ear. You should have stayed quiet, Havana. You really should have. His grip tightened. Now look where your mouth has brought you. The pressure of the gun increased. And then, something snapped inside me. A kind of rage I'd never felt before. And I knew. This was the moment everything about my life would change. I never thought one moment of silence could feel like war, but that's exactly what happened when Charles walked into our bedroom and shut the door behind him. No yelling, no packing, just a heavy silence that squeezed the air out of the room. Havana, do you still trust me? He asked. It was a simple question, but it hit me like a punch. Of course I do, I whispered. Why would you even ask that? He sat beside me, his hand trembling slightly. Because watching you crawl into this house night after night, bruised, exhausted, hiding tears, I feel like I'm losing you, and I don't know how to protect you if you won't tell me everything. I wanted to tell him, every detail, every insult, every threat. But I couldn't, not yet, not with William still circling like a vulture. I'm trying to keep you safe, I said. He shook his head. I'm your husband. That means I go into the darkness with you, not wait for you to come back from it. That broke something inside me. I reached for his hand, but before our fingers touched, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. I answered. A distorted voice whispered, If you don't drop your complaint, we'll handle you the way we handled your uncle. My blood froze. "Who is this?" I snapped. But the line went dead. Charles grabbed the phone. "Havana, tell me what is going on." And for the first time, I didn't know how to answer. I wasn't sure who scared me more, William or the people protecting him. I couldn't sleep. That voice replayed in my head every time I blinked. "We'll handle you the way we handled your uncle." My uncle died in what the department called a traffic accident. A story I never believed. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call ahead. I needed to see my father's face when I asked him what he'd hidden from me. He opened the door with his usual smile, but it disappeared the moment he saw my expression. "What happened?" he asked. "We need to talk about Uncle Raymond." My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Havana, please don't go digging into that again." "He was murdered," I said, "and whoever killed him just threatened me." My father closed the door slowly, his jaw tightening. "Sit down." For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. "Havana, there were officers who didn't want your uncle on the force anymore. He was planning to expose a ring of corruption. He never got the chance." "Because of William," I whispered. "No, William was small time then. This was bigger, much bigger. Men who have retired now or pretend to be retired." A chill whispered through my spine. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" He looked away. "Because you chose the same path, and I knew one day they might come for you too." Before I could respond, there was a loud bang on the door. 3 men in plain clothes stood outside. My father went pale. My mother started praying under her breath. "Havana," one of them called, "we need you to come with us." No badges, no identification, no protocol. Just danger. And I knew they weren't here to escort me. They were here to make me disappear. I stepped outside with a calmness I didn't feel. My father tried to stop them, but one man shoved him back, and rage flared through me like a match to gasoline. "Touch him again," I warned, "and you'll regret it." One of them smirked. "Is that the FBI talking, or Daddy's little girl?" I clenched my jaw. Both. They forced me into a black SUV, no plates. Inside, the man in the front seat twisted around. "Drop the case against Officer William. That's all you have to do." I stared dead into his eyes. "Not happening." "Then maybe we should deliver a message you'll understand." The SUV swerved suddenly, turning into a deserted service road. Woods on both sides. Nowhere to run. Not ideal, but workable. The car stopped. 3 men stepped out. One opened my door roughly. "Last chance," he said. "Walk away from this or end up like your uncle." I exhaled slowly. They thought I was trapped. They forgot I was trained for this. The first man reached for me, mistake. I twisted his wrist, slammed his head against the SUV, and he dropped instantly. The others lunged. One tried to grab my neck. I elbowed him in the ribs, spun, and swept his legs. He hit the ground hard. The third pulled a gun. For a second, I froze. Then headlights blasted down the road. A familiar voice shouted, "Drop the weapon." Charles. He had followed us. The gunman hesitated, just long enough for me to kick the weapon from his hand. But before we could cuff them, a police cruiser appeared. William stepped out. Smiling. "Looks like you've been busy, Havana," he said. "But tonight you lose." William walked toward us with the casual confidence of a man who believed he owned the night. His uniform was crisp, his badge shining as if corruption didn't stain every inch of him. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. "Responding to a reported assault," he said smoothly. 3 men beaten by an unidentified woman. Imagine my shock when I realized the woman was you. "So you sent them," I said. He shrugged. "Prove it." Charles stepped forward. "This is kidnapping, illegal detainment, threats, assault." William raised a hand to silence him. "Sir, if you keep talking, I'll have to arrest you too." That did it. I saw red. "You set my uncle up," I said. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" His smile faltered, just a fraction, enough to confirm everything. Careful, Havana, he murmured. Your career is hanging by a thread. No, I said. Yours is. He leaned in close. You think your badge scares me. I have protection. You're alone. Just then, his radio buzzed. A voice said, Unit 41, return immediately. Internal Affairs wants you now. William stiffened. IA didn't summon officers unless something serious was happening. Very serious. Looks like your protection isn't picking up the phone tonight, I whispered. His jaw clenched, and for the first time, I saw fear struggling beneath his arrogance. He pointed at me. You're going to regret this, I'll make sure of it. He stormed back to his cruiser, tires screeching as he sped off. Charles exhaled shakily. Havana, what did you just do? I didn't answer, because deep down I already knew. This was the beginning of the end. And the part William feared most hadn't even started. I walked into the bureau the next morning with a calmness I didn't feel. I had not slept. I had not eaten. I had only one thought. William destroyed my uncle. He tried to destroy me. Now it was my turn. My supervisor, Agent Keller, met me with a tight expression. We received a packet last night, he said. Anonymous, all about Officer William Johnston. I froze. What kind of packet? Documents, audio, footage. He looked at me sharply. None of it came from you, right? I shook my head. I hadn't sent anything. But someone wanted William gone. Keller continued. Internal Affairs opened a full investigation at 3 a.m. They want your testimony. I felt something electric spark in my chest. It wasn't joy. Not yet. Just anticipation. When I stepped into the IA briefing room, William was already there, hands cuffed, face pale, eyes wild. He lunged forward when he saw me. You think this will stop me, he shouted. You think you're safe. Officers dragged him back into the seat. But I leaned in just enough for him to hear me. No, William, I don't want you to stop. I want you to watch. Confusion flickered across his face. Watch what? He snapped. Everything you built, I whispered, burn slowly. He swallowed, hard, because he knew exactly what was coming. And I hadn't even started the actual revenge yet. I watched William being dragged out of the IA room, still shouting, still pretending he had control. But deep down, he knew his empire was cracking. The next 48 hours were a storm. IA called me into a private office. A long table, 3 investigators, a recorder blinking red. Agent Havana Dickson, one of them said, we need your full statement, everything that officer has done to you. I inhaled slowly. And for the first time, I told it all. The racial slurs, the profiling, the threats, the attempt to frame me, the men he sent to silence me, the years of complaints buried under influence and godfathers. They didn't blink. They didn't interrupt. They just listened, like men who had already seen proof. After 3 hours, they finally spoke. We have reason to believe William's protectors have also been active in obstructing justice, one said. You're not just testifying against one officer, you're testifying against a system. A cold shiver ran through me. This wasn't small anymore. It was a war. When I stepped out of the building, a black SUV pulled up beside me. The window rolled down. A man in a dark suit said, Agent Havana, we want to help, but you must understand when you take people like William down, the ones above him start to panic. I paused. Who are you? We're the ones who have been watching him far longer than you have. And why help me now? The man smirked. Because you finally scared him, and men like him, they make mistakes when they're scared. The SUV pulled off, leaving me stunned. I didn't know who they were, but I had just gained allies, dangerous ones. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. By Monday morning, 3 retired officers, William's godfathers, had been summoned for questioning. These were men who once ran entire departments with iron fists and dirty hands. Men who thought they were untouchable. I watched them walk into the building with stiff backs and trembling hands. Karma had a schedule today. Later that afternoon, my supervisor, Keller, called me to his office. "Havana, you need to see this." He turned his monitor toward me. A surveillance recording from years ago. My uncle, sitting in a dimly lit room, arguing with those same godfathers. My heart slammed against my chest. They were threatening him. And then, another video. A truck speeding through a red light. My uncle's car crushed under it. But the camera angle, someone had cut the parts showing the plate number. William was the one assigned to clean the footage, Keller said. My hands shook. They killed my uncle. And William erased the evidence. The rage that rose inside me was something dark, sharp, unstoppable. Keller touched my shoulder. "IA needs your reaction on record, but Havana, this is bigger than revenge now. This is justice." I nodded, but deep inside I knew justice and revenge were now the same thing. As we stepped out of the office, an alarm sounded through the building. A voice shouted, "William escaped custody." Cold washed through me. He was coming. And the next target was me. I knew he would come. A wounded animal always returns to the one who hurt him. Charles insisted on staying up with me, but I sent him to the bedroom. "If he sees you," I whispered, "he'll use you against me." At 2:13 a.m., the doorbell rang. Slow. Deliberate. Taunting. I grabbed the metal baton I kept hidden under the couch cushion and walked to the peephole. William stood outside. Bruised. Dirty. Eyes wild like a man who had lost everything. "Havana," he called softly, "open the door, I just want to talk." Talk? No. He wanted to ruin one last thing before his world collapsed. I didn't open the door. "I trusted the system," he shouted suddenly. "I served this country, and this is how you repay me, by dragging me through the mud." "You dragged yourself," I said through the door. He slammed his fist against it. "Hard. You think you're better than me. Because of that damn badge. Everything you have, I can take it." Then he said something that made my blood turn to ice. "Maybe I should start with your husband." I unlocked the door. Not to let him in, but because I wasn't hiding anymore. The moment the lock clicked, he charged. I swung the baton. He dodged. We crashed into the hallway. He growled, "I'm going to make you watch everything you love burn." But then, red and blue lights exploded through the windows. Sirens. He froze. Officers stormed in, tackling him to the floor. William screamed my name as they dragged him out. "Havana, this isn't over." But oh, it was. Because my revenge had only reached the halfway point. The courtroom was cold. Too cold, like it could freeze guilt itself into something visible. William sat at the defendant's table, wrists cuffed, eyes empty. His arrogance was gone. His smirk gone. His confidence dead. Now he was just a man whose power had evaporated. The prosecutor laid everything bare. Abuse of authority. Racial profiling. Evidence tampering. Conspiracy. Attempted assault. Obstruction of justice. Connections to my uncle's death. Every accusation landed like a hammer strike. But the moment that shook the courtroom was a recording William never knew existed. Him, talking to his godfathers. Discussing making Havana disappear. Discussing cover-ups. Laughing about my uncle. The entire room turned to look at me. My throat tightened. My hands trembled. But I didn't look away. Because this was what justice looked like. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood. My uncle was a good man. He believed in the badge. My father served with honor. I joined to continue their legacy. But people like William destroy that legacy. So yes, I pursued this, and I would do it again. William glared at me with pure hatred. But for the first time, he looked small. The judge banged the gavel. Bail denied, trial date set, internal dismissal pending review. William stood as the officers pulled him away. "You think you won," he snarled. "This isn't victory." "No," I said, "this is payback." And tomorrow, the police board would decide his fate. The disciplinary boardroom was silent as William was escorted inside. No uniform. No badge. Just a broken man, hiding behind anger. His godfathers were present too, now stripped of influence, forced to face the consequences they thought they'd outrun. I sat in the witness chair. A board member asked, "Agent Havana, do you believe Officer William Johnston is fit to remain in law enforcement?" I met William's eyes. He looked at me with desperation, but also pleading. For mercy. For forgiveness. The same man who tried to make me disappear now wanted understanding. I let out a slow breath. "No," I said simply. "He's dangerous, he abuses power, and he believes people like me should live in fear." William stood abruptly. "Havana, please, I'm begging you, I have nothing left. They're going to bury me, just don't do this." But I remembered my uncle. My father's fear. The night he sent men to ambush me. The lies. The threats. The profiling. Everything he stole from me. I turned to the board. "I stand by what I said." The chairman nodded. "Officer William Johnston, you are hereby dismissed from the police force with immediate effect. All privileges, protections, and benefits revoked." William collapsed into his seat. No fight left. No shield. No power. As he was dragged out, he looked at me one last time. "Why?" he whispered. "Because you earned it," I replied. And that was the end of him. What do you think? Did Officer William truly deserve everything that came to him? Or did Havana go too far in her fight for justice? Have you ever been profiled or judged unfairly because of how you look? Share your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it.